The Atlantic Ocean has always held secrets, some buried beneath miles of shifting currents and crushing darkness. Among them lies one of the most legendary war machines of World War II, the German battleship Bismarck. For over 80 years, it has rested silently on the seabed, its broken frame serving as a tomb for the sailors who went down with it in May of 1941. But in June 2025, an international research team launched a mission unlike any before. They were not historians simply hoping to document the wreck. They were engineers, scientists, and explorers, armed with advanced underwater drones, machines capable of descending to depths where sunlight has never reached, equipped with artificial intelligence that could scan, record, and even make real-time decisions in the abyss. The mission was publicly announced as an effort to study structural decay of the wreck and better understand how steel warships corrode in deep-sea environments. But behind the official statement, whispers suggested another motive. Something had been detected near the Bismarck, something that had no place on a warship sunk during World War II. The world's attention turned toward the Atlantic, waiting for what the drones might uncover. Few imagined that the truth waiting in the darkness would terrify not just the expedition team, but the entire globe. The story of the Bismarck begins long before the expedition of 2025. To understand the weight of what lies on the seafloor, you first need to grasp the myth that surrounds this massive battleship. Launched in 1939, the Bismarck was the pride of Nazi Germany's navy. Measuring over 820 feet in length, armed with 8 15-inch guns, and capable of reaching speeds that rivaled any ship of its time, it was built not only as a weapon, but as a symbol. For Hitler and his generals, the Bismarck represented power, fear, and dominance over the seas. The Allies knew this. When the Bismarck set out in May 1941 on its first major mission, codenamed Operation Rheinübung, the Royal Navy mobilized nearly every available vessel to track it down. The battleship's objective was simple: slip into the Atlantic, disrupt Allied shipping lanes, and cripple Britain's ability to import food and supplies. If it succeeded, Britain's survival itself would be at stake. The chase for the Bismarck became one of the most dramatic naval hunts in history. On May 24th, in the frigid waters of the North Atlantic, the Bismarck met the British battlecruiser HMS Hood. Within minutes of battle, the Bismarck's guns found their mark, detonating the Hood's magazines. In a single, catastrophic explosion, the pride of the Royal Navy was gone, taking over 1,400 sailors with her. The news shocked Britain and turned the Bismarck into a figure of dread. But that triumph was short-lived. Damaged and leaking oil, the Bismarck attempted to retreat to occupied France for repairs. British ships and aircraft relentlessly pursued her. On May 27, 1941, after hours of bombardment and torpedo strikes, the Bismarck was reduced to a burning hulk. Her crew scuttled the ship to prevent capture. Over 2,000 German sailors perished. Only a few hundred survived. For decades, the wreck remained undiscovered, resting nearly 3 miles beneath the surface. It wasn't until 1989 that famed oceanographer Robert Ballard, the same man who located the Titanic, found the Bismarck's final resting place. Images revealed a vast, eerie structure, largely intact despite the violence of her sinking. The sight of it sent shivers through historians. The warship still sat upright, as if defying time itself. But even after its discovery, the Bismarck remained wrapped in myth. Survivors spoke of strange sounds before the ship went down. Divers and sonar scans over the years hinted at anomalies around the wreck, metallic readings, odd geometric structures that didn't match the ship's design. Most dismissed these as errors in equipment or natural formations. Yet by 2025, whispers had grown louder. There were rumors that classified military sonar sweeps had picked up movements near the wreck. Movements. Some claimed electromagnetic interference was recorded in the area, strong enough to disrupt communications. If true, it meant the Bismarck's grave was not as silent as the world believed. For the scientists preparing the drone mission, the legend of the Bismarck was no longer just history, it was a puzzle, and they were about to open it. The RV Helios drifted above the Atlantic swells, its steel hull creaking as if aware of the secret resting beneath it. The crew bustled across the deck, preparing for what they thought would be a historic but ordinary mission, sending an advanced deep-sea drone into the resting place of the Bismarck. The control room glowed dimly with the light of monitors. Rows of screens displayed sonar sweeps, pressure readouts, and camera feeds from the sleek, torpedo-shaped submersible drone named Abyssal 1. Dr. Matthias Keller, the expedition leader, leaned over the primary console. His hands, though steady, bore the weight of sleepless anticipation. For decades he had studied maritime ruins, but the Bismarck had always remained just beyond his reach, not because of technology, but because of superstition. Sailors, even in modern times, spoke of the site with hushed tones, claiming the wreck was cursed, that strange things happened to those who dared disturb it. Today, Keller intended to prove those tales nothing more than myth, or at least, that was the plan. "Drone ready, pressure seals holding," reported Anna Kovacs, his lead engineer. Her Hungarian accent was sharp, efficient. She adjusted her headset, eyes flicking across diagnostics. "Navigation online," said Luis Ortega, the pilot. His fingers rested on the joystick with practiced ease. "Telemetry stable. Depth guidance locked." Keller nodded. "Begin descent." With a low mechanical whir, Abyssal 1 detached from its cradle on the ship's underside and slipped silently into the dark waters. On the surface, waves rocked gently, but below, the world changed quickly. The first feed lit the monitors, schools of silver fish darting through sunlit layers, their scales flashing like mirrors. As the drone sank deeper, the sunlight faded. The water grew murkier, darker, until all that remained was the pale glow of the drone's floodlights cutting into infinite blackness. "Depth, 1,000 meters, 1,500. Ortega called out, his voice calm but tense. The control room grew quieter with every meter. Everyone's eyes were glued to the screens. The wreck of the Bismarck lay over 4,700 meters below, a graveyard of steel and men. At 2,000 meters, the ocean grew alien. Strange, gelatinous creatures floated past, their bodies transparent, organs glowing faintly like lanterns. A giant squid flickered across the edge of the camera before vanishing into black. At 3,000 meters, the pressure readings began to spike. "She's holding steady," Anna reassured, though her brow furrowed. "But we're pushing her near limits." "Keep going," Keller ordered. The drone pressed onward, its lights revealing swirls of sediment drifting like smoke. The sonar pinged softly, the only sound in the tense control room. "Depth, 4,600 meters, Ortega whispered. "Approaching target zone." Everyone leaned closer. The camera feed cleared, revealing a haunting sight. The broken remains of the Bismarck, her once mighty hull split apart, towers of rusted steel rising from the seabed like skeletal spires. The warship lay like a tombstone, surrounded by silence, her guns forever pointed into the abyss. Keller exhaled slowly. There she is. History, frozen in time. But as the drone swept its lights across the wreck, the excitement gave way to unease. Shadows clung to the steel in ways that didn't match the floodlights. Strange patterns coated the hull, not rust, not decay, but lines, etched markings, spiraling across the steel like deliberate carvings. "What is that?" Anna asked, her voice breaking the silence. Keller squinted. "Zoom in." The drone tilted, focusing on the strange symbols. They were etched deep, glowing faintly, as if the metal itself breathed. Ortega swallowed hard. "That's not natural corrosion. Someone, or something, carved that." The sonar pinged again, but this time the sound was off. It came back distorted, as though the wreck itself was sending an echo. The screens flickered. "Interference," Anna muttered, typing furiously. "But the source isn't from above. It's from below the wreck." A cold silence swept the room. Keller leaned forward, gripping the edge of the console. "Take the drone underneath," Ortega hesitated. "Sir, that's risky. The hull is unstable." "Do it," Keller cut in, his tone leaving no room for debate. The drone edged closer, slipping beneath the cracked belly of the battleship. Dust and silt swirled like smoke in the floodlights. The symbols grew denser here, not just etched into the steel, but stretching into the very seabed itself. Then the first anomaly appeared. Something moved. Not the drift of water, not a fish, not even debris. The camera caught a tendril-like shape sliding across the seabed, vanishing into darkness. "Rewind that," Anna snapped. Ortega played it back, frame by frame. A long black appendage, smooth and glistening, coiled out of the sand and then disappeared. The room froze. "What the hell was that?" whispered Luis. Before Keller could answer, the drone's lights flickered. The sonar screamed, a rapid pulse of distorted echoes. On the monitors, something massive stirred beneath the wreck. The seabed shifted. A deep rumble vibrated through the speakers, though no sound should have traveled from that depth. The Bismarck's remains groaned as if stirred by a breath of unseen force. Anna gripped her headset, panic breaking through her composure. "Sir, I'm reading something. A power surge. But it's not mechanical, it's organic." The camera feed shook violently, static ripping across the screens. For a moment, only blackness filled the monitors. Then the image snapped back, distorted. What they saw made everyone's blood run cold. The seabed beneath the Bismarck was cracked open, and from it poured a light, an unnatural pulsing glow that painted the wreck in alien hues. The tendrils returned, dozens of them, sliding out from the fissures, curling and writhing in silence. The drone's instruments screamed warnings, pressure spikes, electromagnetic surges, and then an audio feed, faint but clear, a sound, a low, resonant hum. It was not static, it was not an error, it was a voice. The control room went still, every monitor, every gauge, every light flickered in unison with the hum. And deep below, the tendrils reached upward, curling around the Bismarck like skeletal fingers gripping a coffin. Dr. Keller whispered what everyone else was too afraid to say aloud. "This wreck, it's not just a grave. It's a lock." And something beneath it was trying to open. The drone drifts toward a jagged opening in the Bismarck's hull. Its spotlight beams cut through layers of silt and darkness, scattering particles that look almost like snow in an endless black winter. You feel the tension rise as the operator's hand steadies on the controls, guiding the machine closer to the ship's torn metal skin. The wreck is no longer just a silhouette on sonar. It's a cathedral of steel, resting silently in its watery tomb. The first interior view is breathtaking. A wide, cavernous corridor stretches ahead, lined with twisted pipes and collapsed bulkheads. You imagine the chaos of May 1941, when this mighty battleship took its final blows, the thunder of shells, the roar of explosions, and then the deafening silence of defeat. Now, only silence remains. The drone's camera pans slowly, revealing scattered objects resting on the seafloor. A dented helmet, a boot without a foot, fragments of machinery covered in rust and coral growth. They are relics not just of war, but of lives that ended abruptly. As the drone edges deeper, its floodlights reveal colors the human eye never saw when Bismarck still sailed. Steel has become a canvas of marine art. Reds from rust, greens from algae, delicate purples from deep-sea corals. Strange, translucent creatures drift in and out of frame, pulsing like living lanterns. For a moment, it feels less like exploring a wreck and more like entering a hidden temple where time has stood still. Then comes the first unsettling discovery. Against one bulkhead, the camera captures what looks like a set of scratches, long, uneven gouges carved into the steel. They run parallel, as though made by claws or some sharp instrument. The marks are far too fresh to be wartime damage. The operator zooms in. The edges gleam faintly, untouched by decades of corrosion. Someone, or something, has been here. The control room on the ship above falls silent, Every creak of the drone's motors feels amplified. You lean closer to the screen, wondering if your eyes are playing tricks. But no, the marks are undeniable, deep, deliberate, and recent. The drone proceeds, maneuvering into a compartment once used as living quarters. Bunks line the walls, most collapsed into piles of decayed metal, but in the center of the room lies a shape. At first it looks like a pile of silt, but as the drone's lights brighten, details emerge. It is a skeleton, twisted, incomplete, but unmistakably human. The skull glares back at the camera, jaw open in an eternal scream. Whispers ripple across the crew. How could a body remain preserved like this after 84 years on the seabed? Most of Bismarck's crew were either rescued or lost in the chaos, their remains scattered or destroyed. Yet here lies one, undisturbed, as if waiting for discovery. Closer inspection chills you further. The bones are clean, not dissolved, not gnawed by sea life. It is as though something carefully picked the flesh away, leaving only ivory remnants arranged in unnatural alignment. The arms are crossed neatly over the chest. The skull faces forward. This is not random decay. It is ritual. The drone lingers, recording every angle. You notice faint symbols scratched into the wall above the skeleton, circular patterns intersected with triangles. They shimmer under the artificial light, etched deep into the steel. None of the historians aboard recognize them. They are not German military insignia. They are not naval markings. They belong to something else entirely. As the camera pulls back, a cloud of disturbed silt swirls like smoke. Shapes seem to form within it. Faces, maybe, or perhaps illusions of light and shadow. For a moment, you think you hear something. A faint hum, like distant chanting, carried not through sound, but through imagination. Yet the tension in the room suggests others feel it too. The drone operator hesitates before steering deeper into the ship. The passage ahead narrows, forcing the machine to squeeze between rusted beams. The lights catch another set of symbols, larger this time, carved across an entire wall like a mural. They resemble runes, yet distorted, alien in structure. Some of the lines glow faintly, not reflecting the drone's beams, but generating their own ghostly luminescence. The effect is hypnotic. You stare until your eyes ache, until patterns seem to shift of their own accord. The longer you look, the less you trust your own perception. Are the lines moving? Is the glow pulsing like a heartbeat? Then the drone's camera glitches. The feed flickers with static, cutting in and out. For a few seconds, the image warps into unrecognizable colors and shapes. When it stabilizes, something new appears at the edge of the frame. A shadow. It doesn't belong. At first you assume it's debris, but the shape shifts, it elongates, then retracts, like a figure moving just out of sight. The operator swings the drone's camera toward it, but the shadow vanishes into darkness. On deck, a nervous laugh breaks the silence, quickly stifled. No one dares say what they all thinking, that something alive may be moving inside the wreck. The drone steadies itself, pressing further. Every turn of the camera reveals deeper mysteries. Sealed doors warped as if forced open, corridors collapsed, yet showing signs of recent disturbance. And in one compartment, a collection of objects arranged in a perfect circle. Shell casings, helmets, shards of glass, all placed deliberately on the floor like an offering. The realization dawns slowly and horrifically. The Bismarck is not just a wreck. It is a shrine, a place where history and something far older have converged. You feel the weight of it pressing down as the drone hovers over the circle. The camera tilts down. At the very center lies another skeleton, this one smaller, more delicate. The bones look wrong, elongated in strange proportions, not human. The feed cuts suddenly to static. The drone is gone. A collective gasp fills the control room. The operator frantically taps at controls, trying to regain the signal. For a few agonizing minutes, the screens remain blank. Finally, the camera sputters back online. The drone is still inside the wreck, but its orientation has changed. It now faces the corridor it came from, as though someone, or something, turned it around. And there, in the faint glow of its floodlight, stands a figure. It's humanoid, but not. Its posture is too stiff, its proportions unnatural. Its face is obscured, lost in shadows. For a heartbeat, it doesn't move. Then slowly, its head tilts toward the camera. The screen goes black. Above deck, silence reigns. No one speaks. No one breathes. You feel the hair on your arms rise as the truth settles in. Something inhabits the wreck of the Bismarck, and it does not want to be disturbed. The drone's headlights pierce the endless darkness, revealing more of the wreck's hidden scars. The ocean floor was silent, yet there was a sense of watching eyes, as though the abyss itself was aware of the intrusion. Suddenly, the drone's sensors picked up faint, irregular pulses, low-frequency vibrations not consistent with any marine life known in the area. The team scrambled to analyze the data, convinced it might be interference from their own equipment. But the readings persisted. Each pulse grew stronger, almost rhythmic, like the echo of a distant drumbeat. "Are we sure this isn't just tectonic movement?" one operator asked nervously. But Dr. Keller shook his head. The vibrations were too precise, too deliberate, as if something beneath the silt was signaling. Then, as the drone descended further, its camera caught something extraordinary, a massive circular engraving on the seabed, just meters from the Bismarck's hull. The pattern resembled runic markings, impossibly symmetrical, glowing faintly in the beam of light. The team fell silent. For decades, the Bismarck had been a site of historical fascination. But now it seemed the wreckage had guarded another secret entirely, one not crafted by human hands. "Pull back the drone," Keller ordered, his voice trembling. But it was too late. The vibrations intensified, shaking the wreck as silt clouds exploded upward. A shadow moved across the camera's feed, massive, formless, yet undeniable. For the first time, the seasoned researchers felt genuine fear. Whatever had been slumbering beneath the Bismarck was awake, and it knew they were watching. The control room was tense. Every screen glowed with the trembling image of the Bismarck's resting place, but the drone's feed was increasingly unstable. Distorted static cut across the visuals, as though some unseen force was interfering with the signal. Dr. Keller gripped the edge of the console. "Stabilize the connection. I want eyes on that shadow." The technicians worked frantically. Finally, the image steadied, and what appeared on screen was enough to silence the room. The Bismarck's hull groaned under pressure, a sound like bones grinding in the deep, and just beneath the wreck, something was moving. The seabed swelled, rippling as if the earth itself was breathing. From the silt, long, spindly shapes began to emerge. They looked like tendrils, organic, yet metallic in their sheen, writhing with unnatural grace. "Jesus Christ," one operator whispered, pulling his headset off. Keller's eyes widened. "No, it can't be alive. Not after all this time." The drone's sonar pinged rapidly, detecting mass displacement on a colossal scale. Whatever was buried beneath the Bismarck wasn't a simple geological anomaly. It was massive, deliberate, and awakening. Then, without warning, the drone's lights cut out. The feed went black, but the sonar kept screaming. The vibrations now thundered through the water, shaking the very structure of the wreck. And then, a single flash of light appeared, not from the drone, but from the abyss itself. A deep, unnatural glow, pulsing like the heartbeat of a creature that had been sleeping for centuries. The room erupted in chaos, scientists shouting, instruments failing, alarms blaring. Dr. Keller, however, stood frozen. He had studied whispers of legends, stories that spoke of things buried beneath the seas, guardians of ancient weapons and secrets not meant for mankind. And now, watching the impossible unfold, he realized the truth. The Bismarck had not simply sunk. It had been pulled down, and whatever had claimed it was still here. The drone's feed returned for a brief moment, showing something no one could comprehend. Symbols, strange glowing glyphs, etched into the seabed around the Bismarck's shattered frame. They pulsed in rhythm with the light from the abyss, as though communicating in a language lost to human memory. "Are those runes?" murmured Anna, one of Keller's assistants. "They look almost Norse." Keller shook his head. "Older, much older. This predates everything we know." Suddenly, the audio feed picked up a low-frequency hum. It was not mechanical. It was vocal, resonant, alive. The sound passed through the walls of the control room, rattling bones, vibrating teeth. Several crew members stumbled back, clutching their ears. "The wreck isn't just a grave," Keller whispered. "It's a seal." On the monitors, the drone showed movement again. The tendrils, or whatever they were, retracted slowly into the seabed, but the glow of the glyphs only intensified. Something beneath the Bismarck was preparing, or perhaps responding to the intrusion. The hum grew into a chant-like resonance, echoing with voices layered upon one another, neither male nor female, but something entirely other. It was not directed at the drone, it was directed at them. Then the feed cut again. But this time, instead of blackness, another signal appeared on the screens. Grainy at first, it soon clarified into an image that none of the scientists had ever seen transmitted through their instruments. A face. It was not human. The entity's visage flickered across the screens, stretched and distorted as if the ocean itself were its canvas. Its eyes were vast, reflective pools that seemed to contain galaxies, and its features were fluid, shifting from sharp angles to smooth curves in an unending metamorphosis. Gasps filled the room. "That's impossible," Anna whispered. "This isn't a malfunction. It's looking at us." The face blinked. The glyphs around the wreck pulsed brighter. And then words, or something resembling words, echoed in every mind present. Not through speakers, not through ears, but directly into thought. "You have opened the wound." Dr. Keller's hands trembled. He had studied mythologies of ocean deities, of leviathans and entities older than time. But this was beyond myth. This was contact. The message continued. "The seal weakens. What was bound must not rise." Before anyone could respond, alarms shrieked. The drone, still deep in the wreck's shadow, began transmitting erratic readings, pressure spikes, magnetic anomalies, and something else. Movement. Enormous, deliberate movement. The seabed around the Bismarck cracked open, and from beneath it, a colossal form began to emerge. The control room fell silent, save for the beeping of failing instruments. The entity was not just awake, it was rising. The first glimpse of the creature, or construct, was incomprehensible. Jagged armor-like plating shimmered with bioluminescent veins. Its size dwarfed the Bismarck itself, as though the great warship had been nothing more than a paperweight keeping it buried. The sonar painted only fragments of its mass, but the implications were terrifying. Hundreds of meters across, with appendages that coiled like serpents, and a body that seemed half living, half machine. It's not of this world," Anna whispered, unable to breathe. The entity's emergence triggered violent shifts in the ocean currents. Waves battered the surface ships above, and in the control room, instruments went haywire. The voice entered their minds again. "Leave this place. Do not unchain what was bound in war beyond your stars." But the scientists did not leave. They watched in awe, in terror, in the grip of discovery and doom. The entity turned, its vast eyes focusing on the drone. Then, with a single pulse of light, the drone disintegrated into fragments, not crushed, not destroyed by pressure, dissolved, as though its very matter had been unmade. The room went dark. Only the voice remained. "The first chain is broken." Above the wreck, the waters churned unnaturally. The ships on the surface reported blackouts, compasses spinning, and skies above them filling with strange auroras. What had been a scientific mission was rapidly turning into a global crisis. Keller realized the truth too late. The Bismarck had been used not to fight a human war, but to cover something far older. Its sinking had been orchestrated to bury a threat mankind could never face. Now, with the seal broken, the entity began to rise toward the surface. The ocean swirled with cyclonic fury, lightning cracking the skies above. From its form, other shapes detached, smaller, eel-like shadows that swam outward like sentinels, spreading into the deep. Panic erupted in the control room. Shut it down. Kill the feed. But Keller shook his head. No, the world must know. If this rises, it won't just be the Atlantic at risk. It's all of us. The last images transmitted showed the massive form ascending into darkness, bioluminescent veins blazing like constellations beneath the waves. And then, just as suddenly, the feed went dead. The final words echoed in every survivor's mind. The war that drowned your world once will drown it again. And then, silence.